Hello and welcome to Epiphytic cacti. Today we have a real treat. Today we're going to look at the species Disocactus salvadorensis. Now this plant is not mine, this footage is not mine, these pictures are not mine. They all came from a friend of mine who's in Hungary, Zsolt Varga. He keeps a Facebook page called The Flying Garden, Zsolt Varga's private collection. He's also on Instagram and you can follow him at The Flying Garden. He features Monstera, Tillandsia, epiphytic cacti, and more. Disocactus salvadorensis is actually a very newly described species, being described only in 2017. It's extremely rare in cultivation, especially in the United States, where you will only find it in a few private collections. It is a little more cultivated in Europe, but it is still not widely cultivated there either. It has a really interesting history that I believe will end up being published in Epic. So if you get the magazine, you'll get to read about the very interesting history. He said that he started this plant from one cutting approximately 4 years ago. So as you can see, this plant is quite large at this point. It looks quite large and it's quite healthy. He noted that it has the same kind of vigor as Disocactus biformis. And I don't have salvadorensis in my collection, but I do have biformis, and biformis is definitely one of the most robust Disocactus, growing quite quickly. He has noted that he does find the culture for this particular Disocactus to be easier. He moves his plants outside in the spring, in May, when the temperatures are somewhere around 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And then he moves them back in the fall, sometime in September or October, when the temperatures are around 40 degrees Fahrenheit. He noted that so far his clones are self-sterile, and the closest relatives to Disocactus salvadorensis are Disocactus eichlamii and Disocactus quezaltecus. But the growth and the care, he has noted, is very similar to Disocactus nelsonii. He says it wilts when it's too warm outside, and with poor air circulation, it will develop yellow patches and necrosis. You can see that it has a very typical habit for the smaller Disocactus species. It both has these small, flat branches, and it also has what would be these circular or terete branches that it throws out. We like to call them canes sometimes. And it will produce a considerable amount of flat growth out of those round branches. Typical of the smaller Disocactus species too, having these long sort of tubular flowers. He describes the blooms as being a honey yellow to orange color when they open, and then they gradually start to turn kind of an orange pink as they start to fade. The stamens are bright pink and the pistil is purple. It does actually have different color flower variations. So there's the yellow flowered variation. It can also be more pink, and it can also rarely be white. That is something that you see in some other Disocactus species as well. You can see here this beautiful sort of recurving, the curling of the outer petals. That is one of my absolute favorite features. You can also see that the flowers have a different color in their outer petals, it being more of that strong, vibrant yellow or orange. And then in the inner petals, you can see that they appear to be a little bit more pale when they first open, but then as time goes on, you can see the inner petals are fading down to more of a pinkish sort of color. He also noted, and this is one of my favorite things about some of the other small Disocactus species that have these long tubular flowers, is that as the bud is forming, the pistil will actually start to protrude out before it actually blooms. It is one of my absolute favorite things because to me it actually looks like that flower is teasing you a little bit, like it's sticking its tongue out at you. I hope that you've enjoyed looking at this beautiful specimen of Disocactus salvadorensis with me. Thank you for watching, and happy cacti growing.